Philippine government will not be cooperating with the ICC's requested investigation into the administration's drug war. This as Malacanang insists that the ICC does not have any jurisdiction over the matter.
This is now a political issue. Hindi magko-cooperate ang presidente hanggang tapos na kanyang termino sa June 30 of 2022.
Even though the Philippines arguably withdrew from the ICC, it still has the residual obligation to cooperate.
Advocacy group Center Law has called on the Duterte administration to cooperate with the International Criminal Court or ICC in its planned drug war probe.
Sa paulit-ulit nilang hindi kami magko-cooperate, lalong lumalakas ang desisyon ng ICC na ipagpatuloy ang investigasyon at hanggat sa ma-declare siyang guilty sa crimes against humanity and in the form of murder.
Malacanang may have called the report of the ICC prosecutor on the drug war killings as fantastical and hearsay. But President Duterte and other government officials may still be called to respond to the investigation. Does the President have any other choice? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this Wednesday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us via Zoom are Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Ladies, happy Wednesday. It's a hump day.
Hello, happy weekend. Happy weekend, happy Wednesday. Happy weekend.
Paaga naman nata yung weekend ninyo. Mukhang may hangover pa kayo dun sa nakarang weekend
ako
eh.
kasi, masaya ako, nanalo ang Gilas over
diba?
South Korea. The first win in 8 years. Yes!
Happy talaga si
May
Lucy.
konting good news dito, moderate risk pa lang daw ang National Capital Region for COVID.
Oh, yes,
Kung
yes.
nag-aakyata ng over, yung mga probinsya, nagtataasan eh. Yan ang problema.
Yeah.
Okay. And other stories as well tonight regarding COVID. Sinabi ni Yusek Vega na hindi mo na kailangan ng face shield, when you're outdoors.
If it interferes with your work, yan ang sabi niya.
Sino magdi-decide kung nag-interfere?
Yun lang. Yun lang. Yun medyo touchy
Kasi
na
anybody
konti.
can claim that, right?
Oo nga. Kina-qualify ng DOH. Sabi niya, nakakatulong pa rin yan. Gusto pa rin niya.
And as well, other stories today. You also have Chel Jokno saying that he is
Gonna run.
seeking a position pero hindi pa sigurado kung ano
Wala
in
pa.
2022.
At kahit si Presidente, di ba sabi niya,
Oo.
he will not run for Vice President, siguro. Kung
Hindi,
tatakbo daw si
parang
Martin
Si
Romualdez.
VP o for VP si Martin.
Kung tatakbo si Martin.
Okay. Actually, we have so much to talk about tonight. ICC, of course, we talked about the ICC introduction, ICC among them, but we also have politics as well. And for our first guest tonight, we begin with Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon. Senator Drilon, thank you for joining us and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening,
Thank you,
Senator.
Ed.
Good evening,
Thank you.
Senator.
Good evening, Ami. Good evening, Lucy.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Yes, sir. So, well, sir, certainly we will talk about the ICC and the implications of what developed in the last few days. But let me back up a bit muna dun sa issue ng politics. Yung nakaraang weekend din, nag-nominations ang isang bayan. And you know how it turned out. I think the question on a lot of people's minds is where exactly is the Liberal Party in all of this? In all of this, Sambayan says that it is trying to put up a unified opposition, and to the minds of a lot of people, the Liberal Party is a major part of the opposition. Pero parang hindi sigurado kung saan exactly ng mga tao ang Liberal Party dito.
Well, I know. Well, I can't understand you, Ed. What's the Little Partido? What's
The
that?
Liberal Party. Where exactly is the Liberal Party as far as isang bayan's nominations,
Well,
nomination process is
Wag
concerned?
mo naman maliitin ang aking partido at sinasabi mong Little Partido.
I mean, sir, Liberal Party, sir, hindi Little Partido.
No, liberal. He didn't say liberal
Sorry.
party. No?
Okay,
So, yeah.
Sorry, the audio is not...
Sir, bulol ako pero hindi ako ganun kabulol.
Hindi, malina
Anyway.
yung audio ni Ed. Sinabi ko na eh. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
just to respond, as of today, as we talk, Vice President Lenín Robredo has not decided and whether to run for president or not. So she is our candidate, the candidate of the party, and we hope that she takes up the challenge so that to challenge the administration candidate. We keep on hearing and we keep on reading about the daughter, Sara Duterte, wanting to run. Of course, she has not yet made an official announcement, but that's a talk in the coffee shop, and we are hopeful that Vice President Robredo will finally decide to run for president.
Oh, okay. Sir, that's a party position, sir. The party is
Yes.
really hoping that VP
Yes.
Robredo takes the standard bearer position.
That's correct, Ed, that's correct.
What if VP Robredo decides not to run? Si Senator Trillanes has very willingly offered himself as the alternative. No, is that something that the
Well,
party would accept?
At this point, we have not discussed any candidate other than Vice President Lenny, and until she decides, she is our candidate. Insofar as Senator Trillanes is concerned, we have not discussed his candidacy, and we await the decision of the Vice President.
O sige, Senator, segue na ako sa ICC because yung
Yes.
request ni Fatu Bensouda is, it's a request for an investigation and there are 120 days for the pre-trial chamber to decide, no? By that time, filing na yun ng certificates of candidacy. You think this issue will be a major topic that might influence the 2022 elections? In any
It is a major topic. Whether or not it will influence the election is another issue. But that it will be an issue in the campaign, yes, it will be. But having said that, I do not want to be in the shoes of the legal advisors of the president. Why is that? Because they are at a crossroads. The president said, and this was confirmed by Secretary Harry Roque, that he does not recognize the ICC proceedings. The problem is the ICC will continue even if there is no cooperation from the palace. The ICC has taken the view that it has acquired jurisdiction over the president because the withdrawal came after the charges have been filed. Having said that, if you were the counsel for the president, you have to decide: do I participate and present and examine the witnesses of the prosecution and show that there is no basis, or do I maintain the position that the ICC proceedings are not applicable and are not valid because I have withdrawn? So it's really a difficult dilemma that they are in.
Yes. So, what can you tell us? What are the implications either way? No, if they go for yes, we will now study the basis for the prosecution, or if no, we don't recognize it. What
Yes.
would be, saan siya mauuwi, sir?
Well,
Either way, either way.
Lucy, if you say that I have that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the president, as that is the position taken by his legal advisors, then the ICC will proceed to hear the evidence, examine the evidence, and if it finds enough cause and evidence, they can file the case.
Will it be enforceable? Parang ganon, even if we don't recognize it? Whatever the
well,
decision is, will that be enforceable?
The matter of enforceability is completely separate from the issue of whether or not the ICC can decide and enforce a decision. There are members of the Rome Statute who are under obligation to carry out the decisions of the ICC.
Well, on the other hand, there's been a precedent where I can't remember now, where they refused to recognize it, saying that they backed out of it, and until now, the decision could not be enforced. No, cannot.
Well, Lucy, that the decision cannot be enforced is a question completely separate from whether or not the ICC asserts jurisdiction validly. So the matter of enforcement is a matter of the ability to bind the members or the signatories to the Rome Statute to honor their commitments under the treaty.
Sir,
we
there was
have-
the case of
Including enforcement.
there was the case of Afghanistan earlier that's being cited by Malacanang among other things, wherein Afghanistan initially refused to cooperate, and the pretrial chamber, at least initially, ruled against the recommendation of the prosecutor to investigate because nga magiging multi academic daw yung kanilang investigation. Of course, it was overturned later on, but it turns out to be one of the variables that could have an impact on everything else.
Well, you're correct, Ed. This is one of the variables. That's why I'm saying the legal counsel would find themselves in a very difficult position. Would they argue that, in fact, would they come before the court and argue that, Mr. ICC, you have no jurisdiction because we have renounced and terminated the Rome Statute, which is the basis of your acquiring, of your trying this case? Or do they completely ignore and shy away from the proceedings because it is not binding on the Philippines? It's because of our withdrawal. So again, these are questions that would have to be resolved by the tribunal at the appropriate time.
But you would also agree that it would be quite difficult, no, if the state refuses to cooperate. In particular, may problema yung how high up accountability will go. Kasi we have mostly declarations, public pronouncements from the president, yung mga campaign promises niya to kill all the troublemakers. But then, meron din tayong pronouncements from him. He spoke before the UN General Assembly, and then in the past months, he's been saying, hindi ko naman inutos na patayin, sinabi ko lang na papatay kayo in self-defense.
May qualifiers.
Ami, all that I'm saying is the legal counsels of the president would have to decide whether to come to the tribunal and argue that the president is beyond the jurisdiction of the tribunal because of the withdrawal from the Rome Statute. And on the other hand, they have taken the position to completely not cooperate. So this is just an issue that, in my mind, as a lawyer and a former prosecutor, a Secretary of Justice, would have to be resolved by the lawyers and decide on the basis of what they believe is in what in their judgment is best for the client, the president.
Yung nga, sir, does that mean that if the government does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, it therefore defaults on mounting a defense before the ICC?
That's one situation that you can think about and consider, because the ICC has said we have jurisdiction, so they will proceed.
Yeah, okay, but Okay. How critical is this dilemma? Is this a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation kind of dilemma where either way, there's hell to pay, kind of?
Well, I do not want to speculate on that the president has his own counsel. So, but I'm just saying that if I were in their shoes, that is a dilemma that I am facing. And I have to decide in my best judgment what is best for my client, the president.
Senator, kung ganong iba-iba ang sinasabi ni Presidente, which one will carry greater weight? May time element ba yan kung ano yung pinakabagong sinabi niya?
Well, Ami, I will beg that question. Precisely, if they want to assert a defense on the part of the president, then they must appear. But if they appear in the court, they might be construed as recognizing the court.
The jurisdiction.
Right.
Sir, what about
Yes, so-
what about the problem or the challenge, I suppose is the right word, the challenge of making the connection between those who were on the ground, si SPO1, si PO3, the people who were responsible for example, shooting victims, and the commander-in-chief. I can imagine that might be a major challenge for any prosecutor, whether a national prosecutor or international prosecutor, to make the connections and make the connections stick.
It's a matter of evidence, Ed. I do not know what the evidence available is, but it's a question of evidence. No two ways about it. It's a question of whether or not there is evidence to connect.
Kasi systematic nga daw and it's state-sponsored and up to the highest ranks of government daw, or the orders came from the top echelons of government. Kaya
Again,
tinatanong
Ami.
ko kung how much weight do the words of the president carry? Kasi siyempre lahat yan sasabihin sumusunod lang kami sa utos
Kaya nga sinasabi ko, it's a matter of evidence and how the tribunal, the ICC, will weigh these statements. The problem, I go back. If you were the lawyer of the president, what will you do? You go there and say, all those are hearsay. Okay? On the other hand, when you go there, you recognize the jurisdiction of the court.
What about we all know that Secretary Guevara has admitted to as much as saying that there has been no examination of the weapons used in the EJ case. Does that have, how much of a bearing does that have on this?
Lucy, I'm sorry, but those are very specific questions on the appreciation of the evidence. I don't feel competent, nor do I feel comfortable in commenting on the credibility or the effect of such evidence. It's very specific on a very specific question. I am not familiar. I don't pretend to have seen the evidence in this case. And as a lawyer, we all rely on the evidence presented.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was going to the ICC website and it says there that the prosecution must prove beyond reasonable doubt. Parang dito sa parang criminal case in the Philippines, diba?
Any
Beyond
court
reasonable
case,
doubt.
yeah.
That's correct, yes.
So I would like to go back to my earlier question na in the end, what kind of evidence, of course you can't go into specifics, pero what kind of evidence could possibly pin down a connection between SPO1 and CIC, Commander-in-Chief?
I do not know what is the factual evidence on hand, but whether or not it presents it convinces the judges that the offense was committed beyond reasonable doubt depends on the evidence. It's difficult to generate or to answer theoretical questions on a matter which involves actual appreciation of the evidence in the case.
Isn't there a requirement, sir, na dapat prosecution, the ICC prosecutor should also be able to prove first that the state has not really exercise any judicial investigations or actual trials on these cases, and that's why they're taking over. What about on that way? Do you think that that was the reason that this even prospered to a point of, ICC taking over investigations?
On the basis of my limited knowledge, I understand that is one of the standards, and the prosecutor, and I emphasize, only at the level of the prosecutor, she is convinced that that element has been satisfied. But that is the prosecutor's view. Whether or not the court will actually accept that is a question of the court's appreciation of the evidence presented by the prosecutor.
That's what our government is saying. That is an insult to the government, because there are actually, well, that's what the Duterte administration is saying, that there are ongoing investigations and prosecutions are ongoing. What do you think of this argument?
They have to prove it as a fact, Ami. They have to prove this by evidence. Now, how do you prove this by evidence? You have to appear in court. That is what I am saying, that they are in a quandary, because you're saying that, this fact, that fact. Yes, maybe that's correct. But unless you prove, you present it in court, that can never be appreciated.
Well,
Now,
if the government refuses to cooperate, the PNP will hold on to all the records, the DOJ. What can the ICC do to proceed?
I do not know what evidence they have.
Yeah. Well, the testimonies are the original file.
I don't know what evidence they have to prove this fact. So I don't think I can answer that question, Ami.
Okay. Sir, let me shift gears again, going back to politics, if you don't mind. You made a
Yeah,
statement.
let's go back to politics.
You made a statement earlier that I find quite interesting, but I'd like you to elaborate. Ang sabi po ninyo, the opposition must go beyond an anti-Duterte stance in 2022.
That's correct. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. We'd like to.
You know, Ed, because of the pandemic, we are confronted with situations we have never seen in the past. We have had 5 quarters of recession. We have had over 4 million unemployed. We have families going on involuntary hunger for the past several months. We have debts which have tripled since 2019. In 2019, in the last 2 years, our debts have tripled. So, and our resources, our collections are down. The expenses because of the pandemic have risen. And therefore, it's a question of, again, to what extent can we borrow and maintain a manageable debt management. Now, that is the reason why I said we must go beyond an anti-Duterte stance, because these are the problems that the new administration will be confronted with. And therefore, what I'm saying is we must present solutions to the people and say, if given an opportunity to serve these, what we'll do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I'm saying. It must go beyond saying na si Duterte ganito, si Duterte ganyan. Maghahanap ang tao, paano niyo ba kami mabigyan ng solusyon? That's what I'm saying.
Pero sir,
Because the problems are enormous.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
But
Yes,
sir, does this mean
but given that-
does this mean that the Liberal Party, in the event that Vice President Robredo does not seek the presidency, does this mean that the Liberal Party is open to a candidate or supporting a candidate who is not an avowed anti-Duterte politician?
Firstly, that is not the standard that I have in my mind, that you must be an avowed anti-Duterte politician to merit the support of the party. If you ask me, you must be able to present a program why people should elect you, and not simply because you are anti-Duterte.
But would it be a major factor?
So does it stand to reason nga that you might support somebody outside of the Liberal Party.
Certainly, we are open to alliances if Lenny Robredo decides not to run. Yes, Lucy. I cannot speak for the party. I'm just the vice chairman. But certainly, I will put in my voice, my opinion, that indeed we should be open to alliances. Because we have to provide an alternative to our people and a solution to our problems.
But sir, all politicians and all political analysts agree, that our politics has never been about issues. It's always been about personalities. How do you intend to veer voters' minds toward these issues that you feel should really be raised in order to get to the point where we can actually resolve the issues by electing a president that will address it? How do you convince them? Because right now it's
If kung mayroon pong 4 na milyong manggagawa na wala ng trabaho, hindi siguro naman maniniwala pag sinabi mo, kami po, ito pong aming gagawin para po magkaroon kayo muli ng trabaho. Kung may isang pamilya na nakaranas ng gutom dahilan po sa kahirapan at sinabi mo, ito po ang aming programa para maiahon kayo sa buhay. Palagay ko naman, hindi naman lahat, ngunit siguro naman may titingin at maniwala. They can see some hope. Yes, I agree with you that this is an issue, election in and election out. But Lucy, let me remind you that we have never been through a very difficult period as we are today. I cannot recall of any instance or period in our past history wherein our people have suffered so much because of the inability of the Department of Health to manage the pandemic.
So I'll go back to my question. You think EJ case will be an election issue? Because in 2016, Duterte was precisely criticized for his human rights record, but he won by a landslide. In 2019, the same issues were raised. And all his
you are talking about an issue. Yes, it will be an issue.
Yep.
It will be an issue. And we will raise it and assert that we will adopt a policy that should respect the rights of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Sir, let me put it this way.
Because
What issues would be non-negotiable for the Liberal Party as far as choosing a candidate is concerned, a candidate for the presidency? What issues on the table would be non-negotiables?
And non-negotiable is our support for Lenny Robredo. I don't know what else that's because he's our candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Some political analysts have also admitted that right now the Liberal Party and the opposition, for that matter, your chances for winning are very, very low. Do you agree with that reading? And if so, what do you think really needs to change in the way you select your candidates and in the way you will conduct your campaign in order to turn things around?
Lucy, look back in our political history. 1 week in politics is long because a lot of things can happen in 1 week which would change the tide of the political tide overnight. So, yes, the administration has the resources, has the machinery, but that doesn't mean that we do not have the will to present an alternative and a platform of government to the people, and hope, and we are confident. Ano po ang gagawin natin? Ito po ating demokrasya, ito po halalan. Kaya dapat magpaliwanag tayo sa taong bayan ngayon. Kung hindi maniniwala, wala tayong magagawa. Iyan ang ating sistema na pinili.
We talked to Senator Kiko Pangilinan recently, and he said if we could get more young people to register and vote, the opposition will have a stronger chance of winning. You agree with that?
Yes, in fact, in the last confirmation hearing of the COMELEC commissioner, a lady from Davao, the issue that I raised on her is how serious is the COMELEC in registering more new voters. I understand that we're talking about anywhere from 7 to 10 million possible new voters or re-registrants. And I do not know exactly where we are, but indeed, voter registration is an important aspect of this exercise.
Sir, let me squeeze in one more question before we let you go. We do acknowledge po the support that the party is giving to VP Robredo to run for the presidency. But are you talking, or have you talked about a timetable or a timeline? Kasi last we heard, baka raw September pa. And that does sound a bit late as far as timelines go. Not unless you're hoping for some sort of a surprise end game of some sort. Diba? Are you looking at any timeline or timetable that's a bit earlier, I suppose?
Well, Ed, I have been in politics for quite a while. And in my view, running for public office is a personal decision. Let us give opportunity to Vice President Lenny to decide. Hindi naman akong kandidato, siya ang kandidato. And therefore, she must make the decision. I don't want to press her and say, Lenny, decide tomorrow. It is desirable, but I would repeat, this is a burden that she has to accept. A decision has to be made. When that will be, I would leave that to her and respect her preferences.
Yes, sir. And I think a lot of people understand that. But also at the same time, a lot of people are on tenterhooks waiting for that decision and not knowing where to go and what direction to proceed and so on down the line. So that is also leaving a lot of people in limbo. And I suppose the party also recognizes that.
Certainly, we recognize that. Of course, a decision made earlier. This is a personal decision on the part of Vice President Lenny, and we are ready to support her.
Okay, Senator Franklin Drilon. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. At ingat po.
Thank you, Senator Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir. We will just go into a break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to Chiefs here in One News, and now joining us is One Hospital Command Chief Operations Manager, Dr. Bernadette Hua Velasco. Good evening, Dr. Velasco, and thank you for joining
Good evening,
us.
Doc. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening, everyone.
Well, Doc, certainly we have a lot of questions to ask you, but let me start off with this. I think a few days ago we had as our guest Dr. Limpin of the Philippine Heart Center, and she did mention ang laki ng spike doon sa occupancy ng ICUs in Metro Manila. From 50% thereabouts mga 3 weeks ago, now they're almost hitting 100% in the big hospitals. And that seems to go against the pattern of yung new cases, new daily cases in Metro Manila. So parang bumababa yung new daily cases pero tumataas yung occupancy sa ICU. What accounts for this po? Have we identified what is the cause of this?
Yeah, we're actually checking on the bed tracker. These are reported by the data managers for each hospital. So for the last 7 days, we're just seeing a 44% to 52% ICU occupancy. So meaning to say, we're just in the low risk level.
Okay.
In the ICU occupancy. Same as with the non-COVID ICU beds, we're just seeing 50 to 54%. So this is for the last 7 days. Unlike the surge, during the surge, it really spiked into the critical or high risk to critical risk. But right now, we're seeing inside the National Capital Region just a 44 to 52% occupancy for the ICU beds.
Oh, so the numbers are good.
Gina?
Parang iba yung binanggit ni Dr. Limpin din eh. But ma'am, are you talking about primary, tertiary, primary, secondary, tertiary hospitals? What in particular, or hospitals in general in Metro Manila?
Even if we check the DOH hospital, the occupancy is also low. It is also at low risk. And what I said a while ago, yung 44 to 50% is the entire NCR from level 1 to level 3 hospitals.
Okay.
So being more specific to level 3 hospital, we're also seeing a low occupancy for the ICU. Not
Doctor,
on
what
the
about
critical or high risk.
Doctor, what about sa probinsya? Kasi mukhang tumataas ngayon pati Bicol. Nawawala na daw ng not only critical yung regular beds nila for COVID. What's the situation in the provinces?
Yeah, currently we're seeing increase of cases down in Visayas and also in Mindanao. That's why those are the regions or those are the areas that we are currently monitoring. We are monitoring the cases, the bed occupancy, as well as the medicines and equipments and supplies that they need. So there's really an increase of cases.
Kumusta po ang operations ng One Hospital Command now that the rise in cases has shifted to other areas, no? Are you as well-manned, I would say, or are you as well-equipped as I imagine you would be here in the NCR?
Okay, so the operations of the One Hospital Command Center that I'm handling is on the national level, but we also established regional OHCC. So whenever they ask for help, so the regional OHCC respond first, and if they need help from the national OHCC, we augment in their staff, in their monitoring or whatever they need in the regional One Hospital Command Center. So we do reorientation, we do retraining to them, we do frequent meeting with the regional OHCC so that we can identify and solve immediately their problems.
But how vastly different are the infrastructures of the regions, especially when compared to NCR, no? Kasi syempre, I imagine that you utilize internet a lot, no? I mean, diba? So we're talking about telco infrastructure in those areas where I imagine that the signal would not be as it's not like it's perfect here. So lalo na siguro doon. So I'm wondering how this affects your operations.
Yeah, I agree with you, ma'am. No, when we started the One Hospital Command Center, we're just doing a basic communication. We just have a cell phone, or we just have a landline, and then we just manually call the hospitals. But right now, with the support of the government and establishing referrals and networking to the other health facilities, we were able to do a we were able to complete our main directory, the point person, and that's what we are saying with the regional hospital when we do our orientation to them. So what they did is they get the directory of all the health facilities that they have. They already have the point person. So whenever they have to coordinate or refer patient from their region, they will easily identify that focal person and refer that patient immediately. So right now, yeah, I agree that there are no signals at all areas in the country. So we're not expecting them to have that PABX system, the internet and all like that, like here at the National Capital Region. But to operationalize the One Hospital Command Center, we don't need those structured immediately, but we can do it manually. We can do it manually at first and then just modernize it eventually.
So how bad is it compared to, during the surge recently? Diba? It was so bad here in the NCR Plus that we were seeing patients actually die outside of the emergency room. Has it reached that kind of level in, where the new epicenters, let's call them, are?
We are hearing the same stories that we experience in the NCR. That's why we keep on monitoring them so that we can also introduce how we approach it in here at the National Capital Region. So the OHCC, the referral network, is not just the only solution to that, but we also need to identify those available beds and to increase the available beds so that the facilitation of the referrals or coordination would be easier, or the patient will be managed immediately inside the hospital. So we are just teaching them what we experience here at the National Capital Region.
We have enough facilities ba? Kasi medyo nakakatakot sa mga reports from the regions. Sa Zamboanga, sabi nila baka daw matulad sila sa India. Tapos sa Legazpi, punong-puno na daw yung mga ospital at ayaw daw umalis ng mga pasyente to move to quarantines kahit magaling na sila. What does the One Hospital Command do in those situations?
Right now we have
surge.
Yeah, right now we have an established protocol that if you are asymptomatic, meaning you don't have symptoms but COVID positive, or if you only have mild symptoms, you should be admitted in an isolation facility. So not just not inside the hospital, so that we can also decongest those hospitals, so they will be readily accept patients that are on moderate, critical, or severe COVID cases. So we need to transfer those patients occupying those beds. And then we need to establish again an isolation facility for those asymptomatic and mild cases. We're seeing a region or cities that are currently like what we experience in the NCR. All the health facilities are congested. So that's why we need to reshuffle all the cases. So mild and asymptomatics will be outside the hospital, and those who needs monitoring and IV treatments will just be inside the hospital.
Yes, so ma'am, if you were to rank the cities or the towns where we are having these problems, what would be the top 5 according to the severity of the case?
So right now, I don't have those top 5 cities, but we're seeing Bicol, we're seeing Iloilo City, we're also seeing Davao City. But I can say the top 5 in those rankings.
In those areas, ma'am, you're hitting how many percent occupancy?
Most of them are at critical and high risk. So for critical risk, we have Region 11 and Region 12. So for the ICU admission, for high risk, we have Region 7 and Region 8. It's Region 9, 5, 6, and Caraga. Region 7 and 8 is at low risk.
Doctor, on a related issue, the One Hospital Command is under Yusek Leopoldo Vega, no? And he said that we can actually ease the requirements for the use of face shields for workers, at least dito sa Metro Manila muna siguro. Do you agree with that? Kasi sabi din ng DOH there's still a lot of protection you can get from face shield.
Of course, yeah.
Actually, ma'am, parang,
Another-
ma'am, diretso namin kayo, ma'am, medyo nalilito yung mga tao kung ano talaga yung policy.
Iba-iba rin Oo.
Kasi baka
Okay.
mamaya magkahulihan ba? Alam mo yun.
Yes.
Yeah. So the minimum health standard protocol that we're doing right now is established by the Department of Health. Of course, we still have to use face masks, face shield, and then the social distancing and avoid mass gathering. And we also make sure na properly ventilated yung area whenever we see people. So those are the guidelines na sinusunod pa rin natin. Regarding the face shield, of course, another layer of protection will protect us. We still don't know kung paano ba tayo mapoprotektahan. But what we know is that another layer of protection will add another protection to us, will increase the protection against the COVID-19. Yes, the clinical practice guidelines released by the Philippine Society for Microbiology and Infectious Diseases. So they just updated it last May 2021. So they still recommend the use of face shield.
Ma'am, pero
So
when
face
you-
mask and face shield.
Yes, ma'am. But when we distill all of it into that one question na ano po yung polisiya, ano po yung isasagot natin sa mga tao?
So right now,
Pag nasa labas
Right now,
daw, di ba sabi niya, pag
Of
nasa
course,
labas, pwede na raw wala.
Kasi may ibang
Pero-
nagnunuansing na pag nasa labas at nagtatrabaho o kaya pag nasa labas at may ganun nagnunuansing eh. So it's a bit unclear whether or not pag nasa labas ka, ibig sabihin,
Pwede pa.
basically, wala ka nang kailangang face shield.
Walang face
Or
shield,
meron pang ibang
oo.
prerequisite na dapat may ginagawa kang trabaho, na it distorts your vision, and so on down the line. I think that po is the point of confusion. Indoors, I think naman it's quite clear na it's required indoors. The question is, when you're outdoors, is it a blanket no face shield requirement or meron lamang conditions na pwedeng walang face
Pag
shield?
nagtatrabaho daw, sabi ni Yusek Vega,
Ganun, di ba?
if it gets in the way of your
Pero-
work,
Kunyari, tricycle driver. I mean, ang hirap naman na naka-face shield nga naman yung mga ganon, di ba? Pero kunyari lang, vendor ka, itinerant vendor. Baka doon kailangan mo mag-face shield para lang siguradong
Yung pagkain,
pati yung binebenta mo.
Or to add to that, kung
ganun.
nakapila ka doon sa mahabang pila sa Santa Cruz o yung galing sa monumento, sasakay ka. Hindi, di ba? Kasi
Tayo na mag-set ng guidelines, King.
kasi sa haba ng pila labas ka na sa terminal You're actually on the street May mga ganun
Yes.
Di ba? So
Pero yun na nga, Doc,
yung paghihimay
parang nagulahan kami kung ano
Nagugulahan
pwede
kami.
so anong hindi. Baka mamaya hulihin kami, kakahula namin.
Luchicus
Okay,
Valdez, kalaboso dahil sa kawalan ng face shield, di ba? Hindi mo ganun pakinggan
pero you're saying na hindi pa nababago yung regulation. That's what you're
yes, the
telling
general guidelines will still be face mask plus face shield.
me.
So yun pa rin po yung guidelines
so-
natin.
So yung sinabi ni Doc De Vega kanina, hindi pa yun yun.
Kailangan so it's a
yeah,
recommendation.
I think what he mentioned, if it hinders your work, like nagte-drive ka, so hindi pwedeng naka-face shield ka pa din. Hindi ka pwedeng naka-face shield kasi may magbablock yung vision or magkaiba yung vision mo. But for the general public, it will still be face mask and face shield.
Pero ma'am, for example, motorcycle riders are required to wear full face helmets para shielded yung mukha nila
Yes.
That's a face
Ay,
shield.
yun, helmet naman yun.
In a way.
So kailangan talaga yun.
Yeah, it's in the law that they need to use the helmet.
Yes, ma'am, the helmet. But the other requirement was a full face helmet Para may
Dapat merong ganon.
para may dagdag na proteksyon. Parang face shield ba? That was not in the original law ng motorcycle riders
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's like having a face shield as well. So yung full na helmet.
Doktor, nung nag-uumpisa yung One Hospital Command, maraming reklamo na hindi daw kayo ma-contact na, medyo mabagal yung pag-contact. Matagal yung response. Kumusta yung capacity niyo? Have you hired more personnel? Because especially ngayon, nationwide well, kumakalat yung virus, may mga surges everywhere. How many have you added to your personnel?
I think it happened yung experience, yung sinabi niyo pong situation, it happened during the surge. So we are really overwhelmed with the number of calls. Plus, the hospitals are really occupied or congested. So what we did is, aside from increasing the number of the hospital beds, on the one hospital command center side, we also increased our manpower. So we hired call takers and coordinators and facilitators so that we can facilitate and receive more calls. So we increase our lines ng 10, so care of yung 1555. So we network with 1555 so that when you call 1555, you can immediately reach out to one hospital command center, and then we also increase the manpower, the call takers.
Are you planning
Wala
to
namang
coordinate with companies to expand capacity, yung digital, yung communication capacity ninyo? Because this looks like mukhang magkakatagalan tong ganitong problema. Are you talking to the telcos for this?
Actually, not the telcos, but yung mga BPOs. So we have partners, call centers that are willing to help us. So we've already trained them. We haven't used them actually, pero if in case na we still have we experience again the surge, so we can easily just tap them and activate them.
Yung BPO libre ba yun, or are they helping volunteer ba yun?
They volunteered in
Okay.
one hospital command center.
Okay.
Doc, at the height of the surge, I remember na nagpadala pa ng nurses from the regions to augment the personnel requirements of NCR. Pero ngayon na nasa regions na yung surge, I'm wondering how adequate the medical staff requirements are. Are there enough? Do you have enough nurses there, for example, that we don't need to export nurses to them? Parang ganun.
So same situation what happened here at NCR. We're also seeing lack of manpower in the regions where the surge are now. So they are also requesting ng mga manpower so that yung mga less cases or those at low risk, sila naman yung nag-augment dun sa high risk or dun sa mga critical areas nito. So we're tapping the regional hospitals, the DOH hospital, as well as yung mga PFP natin, PNP. So they also have doctors and nurses that we are now augmenting with those regions.
So talagang nationwide yung shortage, ha?
Yeah.
It's not just in Metro Manila dahil ang dami, I mean, the population of Metro Manila relative to each of the cities, halimbawa in the Visayas and Mindanao, is higher, di ba? So I imagine na kaya nga ganun kalaki yung surge, di ba? So pati pala doon kulang din. So it's a nationwide shortage. Is that what we're saying? Although the Association of Nurses disagrees, they say that they have enough.
I don't have the numbers kung meron talaga tayong shortage, but what we are seeing is because COVID-19 approach is way different from a regular disease. Yung manpower natin would be double or triple sometimes. Unlike in a regular disease, you just need one nurse. But for a COVID-19 case, you need more manpower. That's why we are seeing also na mababa yung mga manpower, or we are lacking manpower because of this pandemic.
What about yung critical care equipment? Kasi sabi sa amin ni Dr. Limpin, yung mga colleagues nila from the provinces, nag-SOS na sa kanila in the NCR. Can we afford to move out critical care equipment from the NCR to the provinces? Or are you sourcing from other places?
Yeah, correct. Correct, no. We are also parang giving mga mechanical ventilators and BiPAP to other regions who are in need. Actually, we just gave sa Caraga region ng mga mechanical ventilators and MECVEN kasi they appeal na kailangan nila they need to increase their ICU beds and they also need the mechanical ventilator. So the national government is also helping out the region by giving those equipments or supplies that the regions are needing.
From the NCR.
From the national government.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Bernadette Pua Velasco, the Chief Operations Manager of the One Hospital Command Center. Dr. Velasco, thank you for joining us at ingat po parati.
Thank you, Doc.
Doctor.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening po. And that will be all for this special edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Edwin Gao.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.